Hey everyone, Holly here. Good to see you again. Greetings from my hotel room in Washington, D.C. Don't mind my mess. I'm sure you'll excuse me. But I'm here at the Bridge Conference, doing lots of great, wonderful Bridge Conference things, but we're also getting some really interesting NTEN related work done here. You may know that we are in the process of redoing some of our site. We aren't looking to do a big, giant design overhaul, but we really wanted to work on the site to make it easier for folks to find things, and to build a site that better reflected who we are as a community and the work that we undertake together as a community. And we had a couple of indicators about why this would be important for us. The first indicator, which is very apparent, were people calling us and saying, well, how the heck do you do this? Or the fact that it took us about 7 years to write out the directions for how to renew your membership. So those were good indicators that we had some work to do on how the navigation in our site works. But other great indicators, we looked at our website statistics. We used Google Analytics. And we could see that we are getting a lot of traffic from search, but we just aren't really able to retain it. And in fact, there's a lot of traffic retention problems from a lot of different sources. And we think that if we can figure out how to deliver more meaningful content to folks, we'll be able to get them to stick around a little bit longer and hopefully engage in the site more. So that was really our clue that we had some work to do, and why we wanted to undertake the project. So before I started this whole project, I really thought this is going to be a huge endeavor, and it really is a big endeavor, but I also thought it had to be an incredibly expensive endeavor. Luckily, our friends at Beaconfire Consulting are doing a little pro bono work with us, so thanks to Lynn and Michael and Rebecca for all their work on the project. You guys have been great to work with, but one of the things that we've also done as we've gone through the project is we've actually been trying to document how we do it to show you that you can actually do these things on your own. You don't need a consultant, although you might want to hire some fine folks. You don't need a consultant, and you don't need a ton of fancy tools. Even a little bit of replicating some of these kinds of things can be really useful for your organization. And the first stage of the process that we brought out to you was the card sort. You may have seen a blog post about this, or you may have actually even participated in the blog, in the card sort, because I think over 100 of you did. But that was basically, we took all the existing navigation elements from our site, threw them all into a jumble, and said to you guys, now sort it out. Where do these things go to you? And asked you guys to create all the categories and fill in all the blanks with the cards. And taking that information, the next step for Beaconfire was to then look at that and suggest to us a new navigational structure based on that feedback. And that's what we're here doing at the Bridge Conference, is testing that proposed navigation structure. So you can see here what the folks at Beaconfire built for us. This is a wireframe. And basically it's a design and style-free version of our site that just has the main navigation elements built in and a bunch of dummy text. So some of this is real text, but you'll also notice that there's lots and lots of, lorem ipsums in here too, right? So, but again, the main idea here is just to give you guys the navigational elements to work with. And what we've been doing at the Bridge Conference is sitting down with friends of NTEN and asking them to test out this wireframe for us so that we can learn from it. So here's how you can do it for about 50 bucks, basically. So the first step to do wireframe testing is to actually build a wireframe of your new proposed site. Not really that hard to do. You just need to build a static HTML file and start doing some tie everything in. If you're doing a really simple site with simple navigation, you could do this all manually. It wouldn't be that difficult. There's also a lot of software out there that you can get for relatively inexpensive, but that's going to push you up over the $50 limit. And that software will actually help you build a wireframe and replicate all the pages out for you. And just so you can see, the folks at Beaconfire did, in fact, use some wireframe software, and this is what we ended up with in the file. So there are quite a few pages in our wireframe that are live. So, I would definitely use software if I had to build out something quite this big. So first, you build your wireframe. And then we also, basically at the same time actually, we were coming up with our testing questions, our scenarios. So what we did was develop a set of actions that we wanted people to take on the site, and basically scripted out some prompts that we were going to give to them. So for instance, one of the prompts that we use in our test is, let's say you're not an NTEN member and you want information about the benefits of joining. How would you do that on the website? We also asked a question around, let's say you think you registered for a webinar, but you can't remember if you did or not. How would you find out if you registered on the website? Just a parentheses here, lots of people said I would just call Holly. We knew we had problems there. So so we get those testing questions ready. So now we've got a site, we've got a script, and with that script you want to keep those tasks nice and discreet, really easy. And then you also want to make sure that you keep that script pretty short because you can't keep people for hours on end doing your test. And then the next thing you really need are testers. And you can do this stuff in person in these sort of one-on-one, shoulder-to-shoulder kind of situations. It worked out really well for us at the Bridge Conference. As people dropped by the booth, we would scoop them up and sit them down in front of the computer and ask them to give us 15 minutes. And this is where you will need some additional software once you have the people. We are actually using a software here on my Mac called Silverback, and you can see it's actively recording now. That's what I'm using to make this. So, in fact, I can't show you exactly how it works because I've engaged with it, but what Silverback basically does is record everything that happens on the screen. So it's recording all of my mouse movements, as you can see, and it's also using the iSight built into my laptop and the microphone built into my laptop to record the audio that is coming in the surrounding area and the video as well, which is really great because I'm not only recording how people click through the different testing scenarios and capturing that, but I can also get a record of their reactions. I get lots of good facial cues, and trust me, these videos have been fabulous to watch for facial cues. But one of the tricks to doing this testing well is that as I lead people through the script, I ask them to think out loud. So I say to them, if you get to a part where you don't know what to do, say, I don't know how to do that on your site, and then start guessing out loud. And that really helps us then figure out some of the suggested things that we might want to do. So we go through our script and say, how would you find more information about member benefits? People come through, they'll say, okay, I would go to become a member, and then from here, oftentimes, they would get a little stumped, which was interesting to me. But then they might say, oh, okay, why join? Come over here and get that information. Or we would say to them, how would you find out if you need to renew your membership? They might come up to my account. We could walk them through signing in, and they could check out things from there. And all of these screen clicks are captured so that I can follow what they went through. And I can tell you it was really, really interesting. We learned a lot of really interesting things. So a couple of the quick things that we learned, people were dying for the word community on our site. They want that word somewhere badly in our navigation, and we didn't give it to them. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that. And I think we also learned a lot about this section, the Learn section. I think one of our challenges is that we deal with such a broad community and such a broad variety of topics that we have a really hard time figuring out how to present all that information in an organized way for you. And the way we thought up didn't really fly, so we've got lots of more working to do there. I also want to say one caveat. One thing that really surprised me is that as we went through the site, people would use this left-hand nav to find things. You can say, like, how do you find an upcoming webinar? They'd click on attend an event. But then no one would use the sub-nav over here. They would always go to this center part of the page. And I mentioned this to Rebecca, who we're working with from Beaconfire. And she said to me, actually, that probably has more to do with the styling, the lack of styling on the page. And that, in fact, if we wanted people to use this nav more, we'd probably get a higher pickup on that if there were a style applied to it. So it actually suggests to us that once we refine this wireframe and start applying styles, we're going to have to do some more testing as well of those different styles to get a sense of whether we've actually met our objectives from the wireframe testing. So just another phase in the process. Wanted to share it with you, and I hope you got something good out of it. Thanks.